Hello and welcome to episode 302 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 13th of November 2019. My name is Big Arrowhead Shame, and tonight I'm joined by...
Big Naked Dog.
And...
Bread Making Bombay.
Hello.
Hi. Where do we go from here?
So we've all discovered, thanks to Polygon and Brian Gilbert's excellent tool, our Kojima names.
Kojima name, yep.
Mine's a horny name, would you believe?
Yeah, mine's a horny name as well.
Yeah. It's a thing I'm good at, plus the breed of my first pet. And that's maths for sexy. So.
Mine is a dangerous name. It's my deficit, which is I'm so big, plus the thing I'm most afraid of being stabbed by, plus the thing I'm most afraid of.
Oh, yeah, that figures.
And Alex?
I think I'm just a big naked dog.
I could. All those literal names.
I could have been, what was it? There was a middle name I could have taken, but it was too much. It was Big Naked Lifeless Dog. No, Big Dave. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd pare it back.
Yeah, you don't
Kojima style. Just go Big Naked Dog.
Well, we have definitely hoisted upon someone else's good bit of internet. And dragged it into ours, so we should probably put a link to this at the top of the show notes.
It's worth a view because Brian Gilbert does take you through it.
Okay,
sorry.
Sure, you're welcome to do that.
I had nothing else after that interjection. Sorry.
Have you been play The Stranding?
So I have played. Tom Senior has played a lot of Death Stranding. Unfortunately, Tom Senior is ill at the moment, so you're gonna have to rely on my early takes based on. Playing about 3 hours so far of Death Stranding, by which I mean I have watched a film I didn't understand and walked up a hill once. Also, I did choose to drink a shot every time the words written and produced by Hideo Kojima appeared on the screen, so I've died. And I come to you now as a ghost.
That's why you're so ghostly.
Yeah, well, that's also the twist about my character in this. It's not. I am also a ghost and a clone. Wow, it's definitely, I basically went into town and bought it for PS4. It's not on PC until next year. Out of a kind of obligation to pay essentially a discourse tax. That I would exchange £50 for the right to have an opinion about this thing. And to be honest, in the hours that I played so far, it's actually kind of paying off in that regard. It's definitely making me think about it all of the time.
Oh.
Like I haven't become comfortable yet with the things in it or anything it's saying. The last thing I did before I came out, and it's going to be really hard to unpick, so I'd welcome questions because there's a lot. I'm super early in the game, which is the other big caveat, but I just got, the ability to, do things in my own apartment. And I'd seen some of these things appear on Twitter inevitably, but, so I,
can you defecate yet?
Yes, I had a shit 3 times in a row.
Wow.
I assumed...
Did you have to earn a shit in this game?
Well, you do have a bladder thing that fills up, etc. And when you take a shit, Nicholas Winding Refn will take that shit and turn it into a grenade for you.
Did you have to go to Nicholas Winding Refn to do that?
Usually the reverse process for Nicholas Winding Refn, who normally just takes something with explosive potential and outputs shit. But in this case, maybe it was just for the tutorial. It didn't put any limit on my ability to press triangle to have the Norman Reedus does a shit cutscene, which involves the shower, because it's the shower unit which has a built-in toilet that pops out. And I want to get to its industrial design because it's kind of amazing. The shower glass closes around you. And regardless what you're doing depends on what the hollow shower curtain does. And if you take a wee, it's like a forest scene, and you see some bars ticking up as it measures the concentration of paradimensional death energy in your piss. And if you take a shower, you see much more of Norman Reedus' bum. A very slow tracking shot of the back of his beautifully rendered, slightly hairy legs. It's if you want to see Norman Reedus.
Are the hairs 3D?
No, it is a texture, but it's subtle enough.
Hell, maybe the PC version will rectify
that. Exactly.
We can only hope.
But when you do a poo, and this was like, I'm kind of skipping to the end. This was like my nth, oh for fuck's sake, I had uttered in 3 hours. But, the shower curtain shows an advert for Norman Reedus' actual TV show on AMC, which is called Ride, I think, which is about him riding a motorbike. I don't know anything about it other than when you take a poo, this appears and it says Norman Reedus in Ride. And pretend Norman Reedus, also Sam Porter-Bridges' Death Stranding character, is sat behind the curtain, and the sound of a motorbike revving momentarily flares up to obscure the sound of him shitting. So the curtain closes, it goes vroom, and then the first time you do this, Nicola Winding Refn explains that he'll take this and make a grenade.
That doesn't mirror the sensation of, or like represent the sensation of shitting.
I think
it's not revving.
Well,
it's
actually,
more.
I want to get into the
A revving is a sort of a launch into something, whereas shitting is a relief of something.
Is it a relief though? Past the age of 35, I don't know anymore.
Right.
Okay.
I think, well, this is why I'd say it's actually a very effective choice. Because it covers the sound very well. It's in the same range, right? The kind of boom. It could be, play it backwards. Maybe you've got something a bit close. If it was obscured with a honk or a mechanical sound or something, then, you wouldn't really get anything of the texture of the moment. But there is something in a rev that is like sort of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon shit adjacent. That sort of, I don't know, it's curiously resonant. The controller vibrates because of course it fucking does. Like,
God, they are explosive movements.
Does it make you want to poo a little bit in sympathy?
Well, so the first time I was like, because, God, it's impossible to pick apart this game even based on a small amount of time with it. The one thing I'm really interested in is making you feel that you're in this character's skin, right? It's a game about taking long walks up in Iceland or the Peak District, and you feel it. Like, the kinematics are very, very good. He looks tired. It looks like what he's doing is knackering, carrying heavy things. It's very sympathetic to the sort of travails of the body. And so the fact that it allows you to have a shower and take a poo, you take a shower for the first time as part of a story beat that needs to happen. And it does effectively sell what it's like to wash the grime off you after an ordeal. It kind of does that. So the first time I was like, Triangle to take a poo. I bet he does need a poo. And there's something satisfying about that motorbike rev. And I was like, I've helped Norman Reedus here, and now I'm going to get a grenade out of it as well, which is presumably useful. And then when I realized that it wasn't attached to a system of, internal geometry that was going to factor how much pooing I could do, it lost some of its kind of meaning.
You feel he should be eating. And,
you can turn to your right and choose to either put your sunglasses on for no reason or drink one of 3 or 4 different cans of Monster Energy.
These are all
he has
next
open
to
on
the
his desk.
shitter.
Yeah. Which is quite a lot like being in the office back in the day. You can also choose to change the color of your sunglasses, or look at a map. And that's what you can do. Or look at your toy soldiers that are behind your bed.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether there's some sort of media thing to look at.
Just some plastic toy soldiers. That's it.
Are there any kind of magazines and things like that?
No, just cans of Monster Energy. And the actual Monster Energy, the logo, everything. Yeah. So what would you like to know about?
Well, I don't even know where to start.
I mean, I think probably most people listening to this podcast probably have enough engagement with the discourse to know sort of what the game is, but maybe for people who don't, can you encapsulate it?
So
I heard somewhere it's basically open world, getting over it with Ben Foddy.
Yeah, that's a really, that exact comparison occurred to me. It has, it's getting over it without the jokes. It's basically a game about delivering packages to places. And so it's in a genre that also includes like European Truck Simulator and Elite, honestly, of like, I've got this thing, I need to get it over there. And I think in its defense,
no, that doesn't sound bad.
No, that is like, that is a legitimate sort of space to explore. And I don't think I'm far enough into it yet. Like, to its detriment, it is also a Hideo Kojima game, which means that, as I say, I've played actual hands-on controller played maybe 45 minutes, and the rest has been cutscenes. And for the avoidance of doubt, cutscenes where you can use the right stick to move the camera around don't count. Like they're still like, there's one early on where 2 characters are riding in the back of a truck, and you can either point the character at them or very, very slowly turn the camera to look at the beautiful landscape, which is nice, except there's no reason to look anything except at the people. And I was definitely looking the wrong way when a thing happened and I just didn't see. But the thing is, you're not turning your character's head, you're turning the camera.
Right.
So your character is there having a conversation, doing stuff, and you can just decide to be a bad cinematographer.
Desperately try to escape from the cutscene.
Yeah, trying to get out of the film you're making. So it's a game about taking on missions to deliver packages in a sort of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi landscape that looks a lot like Iceland. And you stack the packages up on your back and you choose the amount you want to take and the sort of the amount you're going to take on. And then you head off across the landscape. And there's an element of sort of Dark Souls cooperation where players can build bridges and ladders and ropes and things for each other and then leave likes for each other. I feel like we're going to be talking about this for a while because every time you start talking about it in a direction, you end up feeling like, oh, by the way, it's also kind of a commentary on social networks and social engineering. And that is bad, which you can tell because the device that allows you to connect to the social network is literally handcuffs that you put on yourself. And the character literally says, no, these aren't handcuffs. They're the bonds that link us. But like traditionally, we don't use handcuffs to link two people to each other. Anyway, and every morning Norman Reedus wakes up and puts his handcuffs back on, which is a metaphor.
Uh-huh.
But you can leave likes for each other, and that's your currency. Your XP is likes. You do all of this for social media likes.
So giving likes is just like a currency or spending.
Yeah, it is. You earn likes for doing missions through the game. It's XP. But you can also, if you use another player's bridge, you can press a button to leave them a like, but that actually begins the like window where they get as many likes as you're able to hammer the button in that period of time. So you can, it's simply like smashing that like button. You're actually, and that's not that is, so they had that idea and they put it in there and it doesn't really speak to anything else, but it's there. And it also is about, I guess, the gig economy because you are, essentially a Deliveroo man. You take a job and every time a character gives you a job, they say, I contract you as a sort of social thing. And it's now passed into culture to the extent that people just, once it's happened. You've sort of been signed up to this particular task that you've agreed to do, like a formality at the start of everything, because everyone's a freelancer in the future. No one has a full-time job. Again, kind of reminiscent. And, your surname is the company that you work for or that you're most frequently contracted.
Oh, I see. So it's not really your name.
No. So Sam Porter Bridges is the company he works for. So, boy, can we get into names? I don't know if we can get into names. So having just talked about, so everyone works for the company that has their name, right? But that company is run by a man called Die Hard Man. And Die Hard Man is called Die Hard Man because he can't
Name
die.
Of his cat? Oh, right, sorry.
It is hard for him to die. So he is Die Hard Man.
And he works for the man.
No, he works for Bridges.
Why isn't he Die Hard Man Bridges?
I don't know. So you were Jeff Bridges. No, you're Sam Porter Bridges. But Die Hard Man is not to be confused with Dead Man, who has the body but not the voice of Guillermo del Toro. And he is a coroner, obviously. And they are not to be confused, with your mother, the president.
What?
Bridget. But not Bridges, because that's your new surname. And I was thinking, oh, thank fuck, she's not Bridget Bridges. But she's Bridget Strand.
Oh, God. yes.
Which is an excuse.
I can feel a vein on the side of my head pulsing.
Strand, almost like it's someone in the title of the game. All of the cities are called Knot City. As in knot in a bit of rope. And this is to allow a character.
Hang on,
like edge, central, towards the beginning of the game, something bad happens to, capital Knot City. And then that means you go to central Knot City. And ultimately your goal is to reach edge Knot City.
Because it's not a city because you're
No, they're KNOT.
Okay, yeah.
But because they are knots in the rope that binds us. The strand, if you will.
I thought it was handcuffs and also
it is. It's handcuffs, it's bridges, it's a piece of rope. You are a strand, but not, you're a bridge. But also someone does say it's funny. Someone literally says kind of early, it's funny the word strand. It can mean like a string. It can also mean to be stranded on a beach. It can also mean to not be able to find your way home.
Can it?
Well, like if you're stranded.
Yeah, you're stranded.
Like, as in, Mum,
well, that's the second definition.
They are, the second two are the same definition twice. But yeah, it can be like falling asleep on a bus and you get all the way to the end of the line, you don't have any money to come all the way back. It's like that.
Sorry, you're continuing a quote there.
No, I was helping.
I mean, it could have been. Definitely could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the moment that got me, and I don't want to talk about too many spoilers. Anyway, time comes to discuss someone who might be president. I don't know what it means to be president, by the way. America has been blown up by an explosion that has turned it into Iceland. I want to kind of talk about, because all the characters
the Iceland bomb.
Like, we must reconnect America. We have to reconnect America. But the landscape is absolutely gorgeous. And I do want to...
So you kind of think, let's not connect America if it all stays like this.
Well, it's more that it's just, man, it's hard to unpack. It just is like this. And it's hard to gauge whether, something you need to know is if someone dies, if anybody dies in the world, and they're not incinerated within a certain amount of time, they will cause what's called a void out, which is an explosion of such magnitude, it will just cause a city to cease to be and create a massive dome crater with a huge baby's handprint in it, wherever that happened to happen. So, this is a pivotal thing in the, I haven't had enough of this wine. So if that happens,
so why the hell do they let these people go out on their own into the fucking wilderness?
That's kind of why, because if more people go, because the wilderness, so I don't know where to start, Alex, but so the only explanation for why everything looks like Iceland I can think of is that enough people have died everywhere, because you get the impression it's a fair time in the future, apart from very early on when a character who looks about 40 says, I remember when you could just get on a plane and go anywhere you liked, but now it's all like this. And so obviously this has happened within living memory, which doesn't make any fucking sense, because everything is new. Anyway, it's,
who made the toy soldiers?
The toy soldiers?
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know.
If everything's connected.
There aren't really toy soldiers.
Connected. Well, the things in your apartment.
Those.
Are they new? Are they old?
So, here's the thing. We could get down this rabbit hole for a long time, and I suspect it's going to come
Who made
back.
the toilet, Chris?
Well, so, I want to talk about Yoji Shinakawa, who is Kojima's art director and has been since...
They work with a architecture studio.
Right. So... The industrial design of this game is lovely. And so there are two things about it that immediately struck me as like, well, there are a couple of things I want to talk about because the rabbit hole of its fiction is, it's nonsense. Like I want to believe that it's going somewhere, but I don't trust that it is. And I think, well, the short version is needs an editor real badly, like really badly, because...
Even worse than the Konami years.
Hell yeah. Because,
Jesus Christ.
Because Metal Gear's, surrounding fiction was its own editor in a way. And it didn't work, but it was sort of there. It placed some limits on what could happen in and then all those rules got broken anyway in the end, but this is... Yeah,
because at least that series started when you had to fit it onto an MSX kind of cartridge, and now kind of...
There's a really specific vision for what this is, clearly evidence in it. It's not a big grab bag of... It is a big grab bag of nonsense, but it's not, incoherent, weirdly. Well, until people start talking. When you're out in the wilderness, it's this gorgeous wilderness it doesn't feel very video gamey. There's a lot of attention that's been paid to how creating a sense of distance through long sight lines, and it's distant terrain looks incredibly inviting, and scrambling over kind of hills carrying boxes is kind of... like I said, kind of puts you in the moment, and you feel physical sympathy with this character, and the, that sort of meta layer of kind of, sort of digital, overlays and things to express that you're kind of a Deliveroo person of the future kind of works. Like I said, all the interfaces are kind of beautiful. Sound design is great. Everything feels great. And the industrial design is, it's phenomenal. All the devices look and feel amazing. And it's, what it feels like is there's no kind of massive coherence there. Clearly, Kojima has a story that he wants to tell and an idea for a kind of horror or a kind of philosophical point that is being pulled and labored in so many different directions. There's a core to it that works because it's just told through very striking individual images, which, there are moments that, that's genuinely it's a beautiful looking game, and there are moments that are genuinely very effective as horror or as cosmic horror, early on, where if you ignore what the characters are saying, it kind of holds together, and then it'll do something enormous in the story side. It'll do something enormously ham-fisted, the president is your mum and she's also dying, and here's a hologram recreation of the Oval Office, all of this, really hammy, kind of completely over the top stuff that doesn't need to be there at all. Similarly, like its weird obsession with America and Americanness and what it means to be president, even though that's apparently hereditary, and like all of this stuff that doesn't really make any sense, and it doesn't feel right because the environment you're seeing is not at all like anything you would associate with America, and that doesn't appear to be a point the game's making. It's just weird. It's just a combination of someone going, I want to make a game about roaming Iceland with a big bag, and also about how America is just defined and linked and fractured by its relationship with social media, and just push those two things together until they kiss, and they don't. But while this was happening, and that is like, oh, also I want to listen to my Spotify playlist while this is going on. Like, basically, it is also built out of a desire, I think, to continually recreate until you're sore that moment from Red Dead 1 where Jose Gonzalez starts playing. Like, it will do the thing where the camera pulls out and you're just walking over a hill and a track from the soundtrack will play. And
Which works once. Maybe
it
works
kind of works
twice.
for me every time. I think it helps
Really?
that I like the music. So there's an element of like, this is actually kind of chill. Kind of enjoying just going for a wander. Kind of like, it's atmospheric and it kind of works. What's been happening meanwhile is, like Yoji Shinakawa doing the thing he does, which is like, I'm just going to reinvent cars. Like, well, I'm just going to, if you, John Roberts does a lot of art like this, like those sort of like big, chunky, inspired by sort of 80s conceptions of what future industry and industrial design would look like, that has been part of Metal Gear forever, but is, this is as modern as it's looked. Like, every piece of technology is amazing looking, even the stupid handcuffs. Like, even if the design, the idea around them is a little bit wonky, everything looks and sounds great. And there's a sort of a function to everything that's meticulously chosen. Like, there's no incidental piece of technology that someone hasn't thought about how all the little clasps sound and what it sounds like when it pressurizes or depressurizes, how doors open. Like, it's really beautifully well conceived, just completely disconnected from, ironically, from whatever it else is that this game is, right? It's like, you have this, scanner.
That was cool.
Like the little, I forgot what it's called, but it's like a little robot tentacle arm that lives on your shoulder. Flicky thing, and you can normally use it to scan the landscape, and it will do coloured dots to show you the relative risk of different inclines. I should mention, you're moving around, you move around normally, but you have momentum, like physical momentum, and the package you're carrying changes your center of gravity, and then the shoulder buttons, the triggers, cause you to grab one or other of your backpack straps. So grabbing both of them centers the package and slows you down. Grabbing one of them kind of pulls you in either direction. So there's a lot of trying to like balance and because you don't just fall over, you start to fall. And so a lot of it is like unfalling over, like, and then going back the right way up. And that's kind of works actually in the sort of walking simulator. That's just about enough activity to keep you kind of doing stuff. And maybe it gets boring eventually, but I actually quite enjoyed that kind of as a idea. Like, will it sustain 50 hours? But,
is there any other kind of threat in the landscape other than
there will be, like, things
walking?
like, so there's, I get the impression that I'm very much still in the tutorial, to be honest.
Right.
Like, it's like, I was told ahead of time that I had to kind of race through to chapter 3 when the game starts, and I'm on chapter 2, so.
I see.
And so, I imagine there might be people, so things I know is there are rogue delivery people who have gotten addicted to delivering packages and roam the landscape trying to steal other people's packages so that they can deliver them.
Maniac post people.
Yeah, well, I would say like rogue Uber drivers, sort of snatching other people's rides. Is it a comment on something? Probably.
Rogue Ocado drivers.
But the big threat is what are called BTs, which are beached things. So
stranded things, you might say.
Stranded things, yeah. So basically,
isn't it funny how those two words mean the same thing in our language?
Yeah, I don't know how it translates. I don't envy the localization team. So basically, and it is kind of effective horror actually. Like, so you have a baby in a jar who is strapped to your chest, and that's called a BB, or a bridge baby, a bridge baby,
A bridge baby.
Yeah.
Is that because he works for bridges?
Yeah.
Okay.
Baby bridges.
So there's also Atkinson and Fortnum babies.
Yeah, exactly.
And PJR Industries babies.
Yeah, presumably. The bridge baby will go when there's a ghost. And then when this happens, your tentacle, like, snapper electric arm will start going like a camera flash, like ding, 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 and it points towards this nearest invisible thing. You have a condition called doom. which is
Oh,
DOOM, which means that your hairs stand on end when there's a spooky ghost. And so this combined with a bridge baby, which makes you see visions of Mads Mikkelsen looking down at you from above and going, "Don't worry, Daddy's here."
What?
Okay. Whoa.
No, I'm not unpacking. I'm not slowing down. I'm just
Keep on going.
The hair. I want to know about the hair.
Hold
Does
those
your hair
rucksack
stick
straps.
up? Does it, Norman Reed, does his hair stick up
There's
on
a
it?
cutscene where they effectively sell that that's what's happening. The goosebumps around his arms.
His all hairs go
like
up.
you see him flush with the presence of a ghost.
So on PC version, we can hope that all of his leg hairs will also.
Yeah, exactly. His
arse hair.
Yeah, exactly. When this happens, you have to sort of crouch and sneak to get around invisible threats, basically. If you fail, a big black pool of oil forms around you, and ghosts try and, grasping dead hands connected by umbilical cords to the sky, will try and pull you through an oil slick into basically an eternal kind of death dimension beachscape where big whales live.
Nice.
I don't know what's not clear about this.
This is a silly question. Is there an explanation for why this thing has happened to the world?
See, the game begins by explaining that the Big Bang happened. So it really does start at the beginning.
Okay.
And this is like, I imagine the explanation is coming.
Did the whales do the Big Bang?
No. This is as far as I can tell, either the final bang or the unbang.
I see.
Yeah, it's like there was
You don't. Come on, you say that.
Sort of
You don't.
what it
No, I
does at the
understand it
beginning.
perfectly, actually,
There's a intro and callback at the end of the intro before the opening titles appear. An hour and a half into the game, where it starts with like basically drawing a thread between the Big Bang, the formation of Earth as a celestial object, the Cambrian explosion, and the last explosion, which is the death explosion,
Which would naturally involve whales. See, I
yeah,
do
well,
understand.
it's a stranding, right?
Was it a really big whale that stranded and it kind of is inside gases blew up and then it exploded? Was that
maybe
the explosion?
Maybe sometimes when you see Lindsay Wagner, she's walking into a big distant explosion. I don't know. By the way, Lindsay Wagner in the age she is now is your mother and the president. Lindsay Wagner as CGI de-aged, but played by a different actress, same likeness, is your sister.
Oh my god.
Yeah. There's every time a famous person playing a character appears, a title card appears that will be the person whose likeness it is and the actor, because they're not always the same. Just to make sure you don't not realize that this is Guillermo del Toro or something. Pointedly, this doesn't happen when it's just a jobbing games industry actor.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's a character early on that just shows up and is like, well, fuck this guy.
I should discredit it.
Yeah, exactly.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, it's packed a lot of stuff into this 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel, I feel shaken, by it. Like
Quantity. But maybe not.
I forgot to mention, the first character you meet is, Léa Seydoux, the French actress.
Yes.
She, and I do want to just deliver a big old fuck this to this particular piece of naming. When you meet her, she's wearing a leather, biker suit, basically, standing in the rain holding an umbrella. The biker suit says fragile down one arm and the umbrella says fragile, love with care on it. And then she vanishes and reappears, introduces herself as Fragile, as in her name is Fragile, but she also works for Fragile. So I don't know if that's just her last name or,
maybe it's both her names, Fragile.
Fragile. Also, by the way, rain makes time go faster for the things
Oh,
it
fuck
touches.
off now.
This is called a time... Oh fuck, I've forgotten. But basically it turns out that she's been, this is not a spoiler because it's like the first conversation with her. She takes her glove off to reveal that she has an old lady's hand. And it turns out that she apparently at some point was soaked, neck down. Why
is she going out in the rain? Because umbrellas you still get wet.
She's a teleporting package delivery woman. And from a rival company or something. I don't know.
You'd think that would give them a bit of an edge.
You'd think, also, Norman Reedus is afraid of being touched physically. So every time a character touches him in a cutscene, the controller vibrates to simulate his discomfort. But the thing is, I never really find this out because the cutscenes are so long that by the time this has happened, the controller is resting on my knee or something, and I'm on my phone. And so someone will touch Norman Reedus and I'll go, whoa! And it's actually that's effective. I'm just immersed. I don't know what you want from me on this.
I think that's good. I mean, that seems all we need to know.
I think Tom has played loads of it, and so I'm interested to see how he finds it getting on, because there's a game here that is refusing to let me play, which is this, open world package delivery.
There is a big
game.
part of me that's very pleased that something that's actually like mega popular, like this is top selling game at the moment, and it is absolutely confounding in the way that the Metal Gear games are.
I don't know what people are going to like. So it only came out on Friday, and on Sunday, when we were moving out of this house, actually, I basically just took a shitload of my old games, Xbox games and things, to CEX in return for credit that I haven't used yet. And so I thought, maybe rather than pay my discourse tax, I will just go to CEX, because this game sounds so mad, inevitably someone must have traded it in by now. And no one had. So, there you go.
Yeah, it's a weird thing amongst the reviews where every reviewer says, this game is mad and nobody will like it, but I kind of love it. And literally every reviewer has come away with that, apart from the people who refuse to review it altogether, I guess.
Which is its own power play. There are things about the uneditedness of it. Basically, I think, here's the way I put it. It's easy to get frustrated with the excess of it, like the unfilteredness of it. And I think it's easy to get frustrated with this, and even this early, that there's something really powerful here with a good editor and a quality pass involved.
Yeah.
Like, just saying like, look, I get, you've taken, Die Hard Man wears a skull mask. Why? It looks cool, but why? Like, but even when you start saying that, you sound like the sort of the fun police, because is it more memorable because that's happening? Kinda yes. And there's the complete uneditedness. The thing I would compare it to, actually, weirdly, because I've been thinking about this recently, is Avatar, the film.
Oh, really?
Which is also like, it's also a monument to one person not being told no.
Yeah.
Right? And the way that the downside to that is not the excess of it or the fact that it's so vastly expensive or there's so much stuff in it, because that has a place. The downside to it is, well, why isn't this part better then if you have all of these resources?
Yeah.
Like with Avatar, that was, you've got all these resources, these sort of, like very, special effects that are sort of widely in excess of what was being achieved at the time. And you've used it for this script.
Yeah.
Like, could you not have spent some of your, like, making people blue money on a writer at some point?
Yes, that's the sort of flip side to Martin Scorsese's recent argument that the studio film as a collaborative effort doesn't produce the kind of the kind of communicative personal art that a single kind of auteur can deliver. And James Cameron definitely did do that, for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped a big old grenade, and that's the thing. Like, I think, films can be very, very different things, but films are, there also can be a collaborative medium that can benefit tremendously from, lots of people being involved. Like, it's like games, right? And I think with this, there's an element of like, I don't know, I'm shying away from going, oh, come the fuck on about it, because it's certainly unique and it's kind of neat that Sony funded this. I think it was Sony that funded it, whoever, that it gets made, right? It kind of sucks that you probably have to be Hideo Kojima to get trust for a project like this, and also then kind of no oversight into whether things work. Like, it's, immensely kind of disappointing for the first female character in a Kojima game in this one to be called Fragile in her sexy clothes after Quiet in the previous one. Like, there are these threads in his work that are just getting kind of tired now. But it's also clearly not like anything else.
Yeah. I went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the other week, and it stirred up very similar sort of feelings of positivity and also massive, massive reservations about the unrestrained excess of its principal creator. And it's
that is one of the kind of exciting things about them. Like that is,
and it is really nice. Just to see something which is just so intimate. In terms of your relation with a creator, that they're trying to tell you something directly from their own brain, as unfiltered as it possibly can be, given this nature of the production, to you. But it's better when that's not hot garbage, you know, is my takeaway.
Yeah, right. I want, like, it's funny because,
because I've been wanting to tell people about what I feel about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But like that's the cool side of that is when you're experiencing some insight into the Hollywood system of which, you know, Quentin Tarantino is massively passionate. But then there's lots of shots of actresses' feet in a really prominent way. And, you know, I don't want that insight
too
into
much now.
A dirty man's wank fodder. You know?
Yeah, right. Like, I think there's a lack of, I admire restraint in creatives, even when they're kind of doing the thing they actually really want to do.
Yeah.
Right. Or the craft, or self-critical craft, basically, where it's like, I really want to achieve this. I have the story I want to tell, but I don't need every idea I have is not going to make it into this. Like, no darlings were killed in the making of this production. You know what I mean? Everything is in there. And it still functions, I think, partly because games, particularly open world games, work as a showcase of a lot of different people's talents. Like, the sound design's great. I'm glad, like, I've seen a fair amount of praise for, like, Yoshi Shinakawa specifically recently, which is nice because, you know, art directors deserve credit for these things, right? Like, I don't think I've ever been wholly comfortable with the notion of auteur creators in games because, or games far more than films, don't have a single director. I mean, as happens in Death Stranding, the player is controlling the camera half the time, which means you can direct it badly. Like, you know, there's certainly, you know, individual game direction can be a thing, but in a game like this, you know, if the thing that drags you through Death Stranding is just loving its look and feel and the technology, then there's going to be swathes of artists and, you know, UX designers and sound designers who are making that experience for you, perhaps with an overall vision, but you wonder, like, the thing I was thinking is, if it weren't so, you know, pretentious, honestly, and if it weren't so obviously stuffed with one person's fixations and favorite bands and ideas and theories that pull in several different directions at once, then it would be easier to like. I don't know whether you experience that, the sort of instinctive pull against, like, oh, this is didactic. Someone is having fun without, I don't even need to be here. You know, someone's just getting all of their material out, and they're not really thinking about me as I experience it. Like, super long cutscenes are kind of rude, in my opinion. Like, you know, like, my time, it matters as well, actually. And if you're going to make not a great film, I don't really.
But I think that there's definitely a value in the idea of making something that people don't enjoy. Like,
yeah.
I think that it's completely valid for a game to make you do stuff you don't want to do. Like, maybe you don't want to walk for fucking you know, hour across the Hebrides but that's what the game is going to make you do. It's like the ladder scene in Metal Gear 2, 3. And, you know, that's actually
the ladder scene in Metal Gear 3 is this entire game. I've just realized. Yeah.
You know, it's like that's, but I think I'm fine with things being rude about your time, so like one's time. I think I think it's a separate point to the one you were making.
I would agree with that, because actually, if it would just let me out into the world and I was going in a direction, it was taking ages and it was arduous, that's the game. I'm up for that, actually. I actually enjoyed, you know, I've had really 2 now extended sequences that were like that, and I enjoyed them both, actually. You know, I like the music, I like the landscapes, I like the feel of it and the technology and the way it feels. The thing that,
but you are being engaged by that when there's the cutscenes you clearly aren't.
And the cutscenes, because they're all over the place, because it is distracting to have a famous person cameo as a scanned version of themselves, and then it pop up to say, you know, guest starring Guillermo del Toro as a special appearance.
I find it fascinating. Like, obviously I haven't actually experienced it, but I find the concept of it fascinating, that it's all over the place, that it's so obsessed with showing that Kojima's got a connection with Guillermo del Toro and all the other people, and look at this star I got in, and look at this, like, product deal I did with Monster. And look at this, and look at this, and look at this. Look at my quite banal kind of fascinations and Joy Division, and like,
it's a little
all
pop
this
art,
stuff,
isn't it? Really,
like it's this kind of great big like fascinatingly banal kind of kaleidoscope.
Yeah. Do you know what that has in common with? Yeah. Instagram pages. That's kind of how it feels. It does. Like, honestly, the meta layer here, and maybe this is where it's all going. But like, it's kind of about social media, I guess, and it only half is because it's about 15 other things as well. But it does feel like kind of browsing. Like,
someone's kind of like, oh, here's my curated fucking, this is what I want you to think I like.
Well, I'll put it this way. Like, I followed Hideo Kojima on Twitter for ages. I actually unfollowed recently because it got a bit heavy around the Death Stranding stuff. But if you followed him for the last couple of years, a lot of it is just selfies or photos of him and celebrities he's met.
Yeah.
And they're all showing up in the game. And so the game is this output of a social media feed by one person. And it's, again, all of their banal fascinations and personal quirks. And that's kind of interesting. And it has a relationship with, like, maybe, you know, I think about this through work a lot because, you know, I have an audience to cater to who's younger, and younger audiences I found now are more aware of themselves on social media as a brand that they're putting out and happier to consume other people as brands rather than as a thing they've made.
Right. Yes.
Like, and this is it feels like this is an encounter, like a walking tour of Hideo Kojima's personal brand.
Yeah.
And that's
I'd put forward at a point where he's gone indie.
Yeah. And it's a statement, I guess, and it's, you know, and that is kind of fascinating as a use of games. The reason I contend that it's, I don't know, this is the thing, like the transactional nature of it. Did I agree to this? Because I paid £50. Does that mean that I owe him something or he owes me something? Like, and I, you know, and is it reductive of me to say I kind of paid 50 quid because I wanted to experience the game systems, and this meandering cutscene is not what I'm interested in and I would like to move on? You know, is that not fair? Like in a film, I don't know, the transactional element of it. If I see a self-indulgent film, even if it's 2.5 hours long, I feel like I know when I'm going to be let out.
CEX is for. Like, I don't know. I think that kind of, I mean, certainly, I mean, obviously, you know, you're being rhetorical and you know, like exactly what fucking Hideo Kojima game is going to be serving up, you know?
Right.
But like that, you know, in the way that, you know, you go to a film and the film will play and you either like it or you don't, and you can walk out any time and that's your agency, you know? I think that your agency, your only agency with Death Stranding is CEX, whether you take it back there or not.
Yeah, right. Maybe, but like, I feel like people don't.
You're on the fucking roller coaster. Well, like,
but no, but I'm not. I'm pushing the roller coaster up the incline. I'm literally, the roller coaster cart is on my back, and I'm wobbly walking up this hill.
There's another thing going on in here. You are the gig economy person. You are having to do the work.
Yeah. I've paid the game. I've paid it for a job. Yeah. And that is what games are at the end of the day. I play a lot of Destiny, and that is a job I've volunteered for, basically. I want that Undying title. It's taking fucking ages. I play a lot of X Offensive. Anyway, the point is, like, the thing, I feel like I find it very frustrating because I don't know at what point I've lapsed into, like, I feel like in one, I'm on this wobbly path, and in one way I fall over and I realize that the game was genius all along, and I am a brutish idiot that can't understand it and is now barely scraping its deeper meaning. And then the other side of the path is, oh no, I'm just apologizing for something, where the person someone becomes president and he says, yes, Samantha America Strand. Like, oh, America was her middle name this entire time?
Isn't America the country? Oh, the company.
Bridges is the company. She should be American now. Anyway, I don't know. Actually, no shit. Maybe her middle name is America because she's the president. I don't know. The point is, like, it feels like, yeah, one side is I must defend this because of my sunk cost, and the other side of it is I'm now apologizing for it, or it actually is genius, and only capable. I don't know.
I think you've only played 3 hours. I think that's what I know. Because because watching, so Rich Stanton was giving a sort of like an occasional commentary on a WhatsApp group I was on, and like he was like, I fucking hate it, to start with. And then he came around and said, yes, it's bloody excellent. Later on. Don't know when that happened or why. He may have written a review now, I'm not sure. But anyway.
I mean, I don't know.
All you got to do is put another 40 hours or so into it.
And I'm probably going to as well. That's the thing. I'm fascinated by it. It is fascinated with itself as a piece of media. And that is, easy to mock and fun to mock.
How much
at the end of that sentence?
How much intentionality do you think there is in this? Is it a piece of high art about low art in the way that, pop art is, like Jeff Koons' stuff, or even Quentin Tarantino when he's writing, doing stuff about Planet Terror, whatever his trash B-movie pastiches. Because I've always felt watching those things, it would be interesting to make high art about good art rather than high art about trash.
Yeah, well, so there's not a lot that's trashy necessarily about Death Stranding, right? Like it takes itself
fairly trashy.
Yeah, it takes itself very seriously. But even like the end, like the monsters from the Beyond kind of stuff is like it's solid horror design, right?
But the dumb names, the obvious tie-ins with energy drinks and the name dropping, all that stuff is trash, right? I mean, not to diss it, but just like to take its temperature on the scale. The way I would put
that is, it is its own unique trash. Right. Like
this is new trash we're witnessing.
Yeah,
here,
it's like it's new trash. It's like if this is why it's hard because it's not really referential to anything, right? It's not like games have a slew of silly names or actor cameos elsewhere, not to the sort of endemic proportions that this is taking it, right?
Right.
Like maybe it feels like maybe someone on the team thinks there is. But it's like maybe it's parodying. If it is
parodying its own Hideo Kojima games, right? Isn't it?
But that.
Or is it?
Can you do
that?
No,
it is. Like, it just is. And also it is. And it's like, don't know.
But like, where do you draw that line back to?
Yeah,
the Big Bang?
Exactly.
Like,
apparently so.
Exactly. It's like poetry. It rhymes. Like, Star Wars prequels would be the other comparison I draw here, actually.
Oh.
In terms of one creator just allowed to tool around.
I like, Star Wars 3.2 that's just come out.
Oh, God.
Latest update is
and a happy McClunky to you.
And
a happy McClunky to you. Have you not heard this, Marsh?
No, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
So this is the best thing that's ever happened, and we can stop talking about Death Stranding now because this is the best thing that's ever happened. So Disney Plus launched yesterday.
Yes.
Everywhere except in North America and the Netherlands. Anywhere where Comcast, I believe, can't force Disney to not launch it.
Hang on a minute. It's not, so Disney Plus isn't in America?
It's in America. It's not here.
All right.
It's in America and Canada. And they launched it and then the first person to watch A New Hope, all the Star Wars movies are on it, and as you'd expect, the first person to watch A New Hope realized that it's actually a new cut of that film where George Lucas had changed it one final time. And the only change is to the Han shoots Greedo scene, where it's been recut again, so they shoot at the same time. But now, right before he fires, the line previously was, he says in like Huttese with the yellow subtitles, like, I've been waiting for this for a long time, or like, so long. And then Harrison Ford says, yes, I bet you have, and then shoots him. And then they changed it so that Greedo tries to shoot Han and then gets shot and so on.
Right.
Now, Greedo, there's just an awkward pause. Greedo says, McClunky.
Very clearly, fully enunciated.
McClunky. McClunky. And gets shot and died.
I think that's an immeasurable improvement.
Someone
version 3.2.
I was arguing like that Star Wars needs patch notes. Like at this point, like Return of the Jedi, 1.3. Name Num is now a child's shiny party balloon. Yeah. Like the Millennium Falcon successfully flies backwards out of the Death Star. But like. I love, cause, it was slightly ruined for me because initially it was just it's this pure nothing thing. Like, this is art, right? Like, that for me was like, I spent a lot of my life sad about changes that have been made to those films and annoyed at the prequels generally and, you know, wanting Lucas specifically just take his hands off this thing he made, and other people are good at making it. Other people are always good at making it. Cause, I mean, it's an interesting comparison because you talk about, you know, Kojima and Yoji Shinakawa are kind of arriving as a pair and delivering something that has a very specific feel. Same is true of George Lucas and Ralph McQuarrie, without whom Star Wars would not look anything like it does and probably not be anywhere near as successful. Or George Lucas and John Williams, where if Star Wars had the kind of soundtrack that these films got in the 70s, I don't think anyone would care. Right? Like, its timelessness is a direct product of the music. Anyway, I'm rambling. The point is, I was like, annoyed at this forever, and now that he's done this one stupid, pointless fucking thing, it's now art. It's just like, the rubber-nosed alien dude is just gonna go McClunky and then die. There's a really good, I think the person who found it did a really good edit to just stick that in other parts of the film. So now, right when Obi-Wan raises his lightsaber and deactivates it, he goes, McClunky. And Yoda kind of whispers, McClunky, right before he disappears. It's very good. I can say anything. I do kind of love it a lot. A lot. It was slightly ruined for me by someone pointing out, from the Star Wars fandom, that the phrase like McClunky or something is Huttese for "and now you will end," and it actually occurs in the Phantom Menace.
Fuck's sake!
Oh, really?
In the pod race, apparently, Sir Bulba yells at it, Anakin.
Oh, for Christ's sake! Now it's not art. I'm sorry.
Now it's not art. Now it's not art because it's just George Lucas going like,
"Oh, there's consistency here."
If it was, it's like poetry. Yeah, it's, but nonetheless, but it is a beautiful moment of. Like,
you had a few hours of delight.
How to completely ruin a moment, because now it's like they've done this snap. They've kind of cut. So they've edited it. It looks like they've edited an explosion to cut the violence of the scene short a little bit. Greedo clearly shoots the wall like directly at point blank range. And they've just added this sound, like this unword that doesn't sound like the language he was just speaking. But it's definitely not English, but it's close enough to English to be like, it's McClunky. Like he says McClunky fucks up and then gets shot in the dick and dies. And it's kind of, it's a feeling I didn't know how to express until that happened.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Can I stop talking about the stream of consciousness now?
You may.
Thank you. What has anyone else been playing?
Me?
Yes.
I've been playing, strangely, it does have some sort of illusional, a kind of relationship with kind of some of the things. Manifold Garden by William Cheer, which is a puzzle game, first-person puzzle game, which has been in development for years and 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 years. Like, is I don't know, 2013. I started seeing stuff. 14 maybe. It is like its banner thing is that you are in these worlds with all this endlessly reciprocating fractal blocks going out into sort of infinity. And somehow there's a puzzle game inside that about infinity and stuff like that. I feared. I didn't really read very much about what the actual game is. Other than to know that it's the first person puzzle game and like, you know, and to wonder vaguely like what do you do? And like, oh God, it looks awfully complicated. And it's weird. And I suppose it sort of occupied this sort of, maybe it's amazing kind of part of my mind before I knew what the actual puzzle gaming is. And actually the puzzle thing is quite straightforward. Like you've got these incredibly, like just incredible worlds where this architecture just sort of repeats off into the sort of infinity. But actually what you're doing is putting blocks on other blocks with the same color on them. So the little lines, power lines, kind of, you follow the power line.
Does it engage with the fractal shape of the landscape at all? So
the fractal landscape, it, like, to be fair, it does relate to the game in as much as gravity, you know, the key kind of, mechanic is really that while you're picking up blocks and putting down blocks in kind of, you know, classic sort of, first person puzzle game kind of parlance, you're changing gravity. You can go up to a wall and you can hold down a button and you will flip so that you're now walking on the wall and the side is now down.
Right.
And there are other things, depending on their color, which have gravity according to that direction, that kind of, if you fall off an object, the infinite fractal thing is actually a way of making sure you don't fall off into infinity. Like you'll fall back down to where you were because you will just sort of loop through kind of fractal land and you'll just come back down to Earth again.
There's no way you can jump off at an angle where you can fall infinitely.
No, well, yes, you can fall for long distances because you've got a certain amount of steer when you're in the air.
Oh, I see.
So basically you jump off a surface and you'll see the surface that you're already standing off below you.
Yeah.
And you can fall down onto it, or you can steer yourself away from it. And there are occasions where you'll want to do that because there are platforms above you. Right. You're like, I'll jump off and then I'll end up there, sort of thing. And it's not kind of in your face about that kind of thing. It's just a fairly evident thing that you learn very early on that is just a fact about this universe. And it's kind of elegant. And while the puzzle design itself is sort of more straightforward than I was kind of maybe dreaming of. Maybe I'm not sure I was hoping for it to be more complicated than that. I'm actually somewhat relieved. But some of the magic of the game is kind of gone because I'm putting the color on the color thing and now the door is opened because I put the two color things on the color things, but there are cool little sort of emergent puzzles from that. And nicely, the puzzles do emerge from this set of rules about colors being assigned gravitational directions. So, for instance, perhaps you have a block and you can pick up this block and you need to put it so that it's touching a color sort of knobbin that's on the wall opposite you. If you put it against that wall, it's going to fall to your feet. So how do you do that? Well, you can if you switch gravity so now the color palette panel that you need to put that thing on is at your feet. You can get a block from that gravitational plane and use that, place that down, switch back to the other one, and now that thing is locked in place and it's now a step that you can place your block on. Like, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there are little things like that, and like it is elegantly kind of unfurling from that point. There are some points where it's a very spatial puzzle where you're trying to work out. Other times you are kind of, you're doing smaller scale little puzzles like that where you've got a certain number of little moving things and you've got to figure out how to get up a staircase because you can't jump in the game. So you got to figure out how to get onto the first step, which is now, so then do I go onto the ceiling and then fall from there? But then how do I fall? It's elegant like that. And there are no tutorials or anything. And that's sort of, it's definitely it's a post-witness game, very post-witness kind of puzzle game where everything kind of naturalistically kind of unfurls without tutorial. And like it's cool and it's very beautiful and very, you can walk out into an area. And I don't know how technically it works. In fact, no, I do know actually. So basically you're walking, there are no loading screens or anything like that. So you're walking through and you're walking from a tower which infinitely stretches up and then you walk through some corridors and now you're in this kind of bizarre kind of halo style kind of geometric sort of pyramid world, which kind of, these patterns that endlessly go on. And then you walk through there and down there and then which way is up? And oh my God, we're going through all these tunnels. And now you're in this kind of open space and like, how the hell does all this fit together? And, how do you design a world like this? But then, so I've been playing it, through Apple Arcade on my iPad. And like there are some little bugs where actually like it's working on portals and you go through a door and like there was one bit where the portal was not working very well and it was like flicking between the two worlds and it nearly made my brain die. But like it's technically very clever. You don't really see these joins, I think that was just a kind of a balls up just there on my iPad, but it's stunning and the color schemes, the colors are beautiful as well. Like if you're listening and you've heard of it, then you instantly have a picture of this world. It's got these amazing pastel color schemes and it has this trick of using gradients from the bottom of the screen to the top, so that you kind of have this beautiful graded image, which is very atmospheric, but it also uses color to define the gravitational direct, like planes, I would call them, about which wall you're walking on, and which really gives you this shorthand for, this block is affected by that orientation and that block is by that. And, you know, there's loads of elegant stuff about it. Like it's clearly a game that's been in development for as long as it has, like by a single person, pretty much, I believe. But, yeah, it's on Epic Store, not Steam. But it's also on Apple Arcade if anyone subscribes to that.
That sounds really good. I'm itching for a new puzzle game.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
It's, yeah, and it's like, do you know that puzzle game thing where you kind of walk into a new puzzle and you start to feel panic as you kind of like, how am I going to remember all these moving pieces? And like in this one, like you don't even know what fucking, like it's this, have I been down this corridor before? Like, and how does this connect to that bit? But you realize there are all these little elegant little things that sort of make sure you're walking along the right way. And I don't know quite all of the tricks it does, but sometimes it's like color power lines that you can know that you can follow, and you're like, okay, this connects to that. And then you realize you can work it out geometrically in some cases. Like there's this pyramid, but it's not a pyramid, as you realize you're on a tetrahedron. Are those two, is that a tetrahedron? Like two kind of pyramids touching together?
Like it's a D8. That's all I know.
Yeah, maybe it's you're on a D8, but you don't really realize that. And then you kind of think, Christ, but then I'm changing like the orientation of the gravity. Which bit am I on? And I know that I've got to light all of these up, and therefore, and then you realize, oh, they're all nicely coloured in. I know exactly what's going on now because it's in my head what the shape is. Good.
Very satisfying.
Yeah.
Cute. I will play it, possibly. Who knows?
What'd you play? So you wouldn't tell us earlier on.
It's because I've been playing an erotic horror game.
Oh, yeah. God, not again.
Called Lust from Beyond.
Lust.
Steam wanted me to play this.
Prologue. Probably because I've been playing it.
Right.
Are we Steam
Good
friends?
job, Steve Algorithm. Steve Algorithm.
Steve
Algorithm's done it again. Making me look at Marty's grot.
Well, actually, I became self-conscious after I played it and tried to hide it from my Steam library, which is successful. But I don't know if other players can still see that I played it.
It didn't say anything to that effect. It just
he's been up to grot again.
It was in my queue of sometimes I look at that looking for games. I tell you one thing I've realized recently, because there's a lot of sex games on Steam now.
Yeah.
And they'll crop up in the top selling and things every now and then. And for ages I was like, God, same couple of friends own all of these. Has this just identified all of my horniest friends? And I realized, no, if you have a press account, you own them.
What?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't.
No, you have to
specifically. Well, in that case. So that was my choice.
Occam's razor.
It was people who I knew had press accounts, so I assumed it was because they had press accounts, so therefore they would own everything. Okay.
Occam's suspiciously placed crumpled sock by the end of the bed. Anyway, so the game has
Occam Soccam robot. I don't
know. But there are apparently no limits to the dark ecstasy, as the Steam subtitle goes.
I thought I discovered that there were limits to the dark ecstasy when I was 26, Marsh, but go on.
Can I have some more wine, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So yeah, I don't play a lot of the erotic games on Steam because they all seem to be for panty sniffing weeaboos.
It's true. Why?
Why did I?
It doesn't seem like
it is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. But I mean, in my defence, this is the prologue, so it's free. And it's short, so I knew that on this particularly time-sensitive week, I could form an opinion on it quite quickly, and I have.
I have to admit, when it showed up, I watched the trailer because you're right, it doesn't look like any other erotic game because it's like a first-person Lovecraftian horror.
It's basically layers of fear, but with sort of mechanically fucking dead-eyed poser models periodically appearing in it. Ooh. But actually, my opinion on it isn't all negative. One of the reasons I feel I can admit to playing it is because it's not a shitty cartoon, for one thing, with boobs, which just seems Like, if you want to go and jerk off, there's loads of porn on the internet. It's not hard to find. You don't need to play, like, some fucking Mosaic game on Steam. Anyway,
it's a thrill of the Mosaic chase for something.
Is it?
I find Mosaics quite erotic.
Anyway, this has got quite high production values, as you say. It's like a first-person game, and it's fully voice-acted. The voice acting is surprisingly good, and it's inspired by the artwork of Geiger and a guy whose name I've only ever read, which is apparently, according to pronouncename.com, Zdzisław Beksiński. Who is a really good Polish illustrator with a fucking tragic life and end-of-life story that you should read on Wikipedia if you want to feel pretty bad about it.
Please tell us.
Oh, his wife died and his son committed suicide, and then he was stabbed to death by the son of his landlord for not giving the son of his landlord £100 or $100 dollars. Anyway. But he's really good illustrator, with lots of, I think it would appeal to your cosmic horror sensibilities.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I saw there's
a lot of stuff to mine there. Like, I mean, Geiger is, horror sex, basically, and cosmic horror has a lot to do with kind of the id and those kind of primal urges, which could be explored in an interesting way, potentially.
Yeah, and horror, horror is sexy all the time.
Yeah.
Like, games don't go there because games struggle with sex for a bunch of reasons. Some of them good, but I don't know, the alien's a big dick.
Yeah, I mean, that's Alien.
Yeah,
right?
That's Alien, as they say at the end of
Alien. But also the game positions you as a cultist who's already involved in this cult. And having just watched, in fact, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which touches on the Manson family, I'm kind of interested in the world of Lovecraft as told from the perspective of the cultists. Because you see these kind of grotty little fishmen and you think, why did you get into this thing? What was the kind of thing that sold you on it?
It's the gig economy.
But actually, so this sets it up with, you have to kind of go around this mansion, and at the beginning it's not a horror setup initially, and you can go around and look at, there's letters lying around and you can kind of build up the story of the world. And it's quite interesting actually how, they've gone to some lengths to describe your situation as basically a gullible idiot who has been isolated from his own family and sort of sucked into this cult. It's actually set now. Which you wouldn't guess from the trailer, which looks like the 1920s. And in fact, one of the kind of prohibitions of the cult is that you're not allowed to have any modern devices on you. And so it's actually all of the kind of horror trappings are self-imposed.
I
the
like
haunted
that,
mansion.
as an idea.
It's quite cute. Yeah, I think and everybody has a different, takes on a different name as they get indoctrinated into this cult. But so that kind of stuff is quite interesting, but it doesn't really, maybe it's because it's a prologue and it's probably like a vertical slice essentially to kind of, talk to publishers and potential buyers. But it gets weird too quickly for that setup to really work, because almost within a minute into the game, you're sort of confronted by this giant gangly creature with sort of a dozen baby arms that emerge from this vaginal rupture which stretches down its entire torso in a hallway made of rib cages. And, that's not that sexy, and probably you wouldn't hang around that long in the cult after that point.
You can't open with the genital shoggoth.
No.
That's one of the first tenets of any kind of horror writing.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But
you have to dance around a campfire once before you can get to that.
But not only is a dozen baby armed vaginal gangly creature.
Is it attacking you, or is it
attacks you?
Talk to you?
It attacks you and it hurts you almost immediately in the game.
So,
and so you
what's the setting like? Are you like just going about your business as a cultist, or have you kind of gone into the house and you shouldn't be there?
So,
are you delivering something?
No, you're a full-on cultist and you're indoctrinated and you have a dream in which this creature invades your dream and hurts you, and then you wake up and then the game essentially begins. But it's out of the gate. I mean, if you're into a sex cult, that is not a sexy thing to happen to you, and you would probably leave the cult, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know, people are into all kinds of things, but that seems pretty bad.
Sounds like something Slaanesh would do.
It is.
But also, but Slaanesh is actually kind of we'll get into this. It's kind of legit sexy in a weird way. Okay, well,
it's not a crab anyway.
it's the crabs for me.
We'll get into that. But
okay.
But actually, this game is, I think, weirdly, despite all of its kind of marketing and the fact it's obviously intentionally trying to put itself in the adult section of Steam, it's not actually that sexy, even in its supposedly quote unquote sexy parts, like partly because of that's the fidelity of it. These rutting poser models just aren't, they can't do the job. And there's a weird issue with penis collision. Anyway, but also the characters are kind of like intentionally non-porny. Like they aren't designed to be beautiful, buxom young wenches as you might find in some of the other kind of porn games on Steam.
Is this a kind of like
right? Well, I guess what you're saying is
woman gazy film. Is this a woman gazy game?
No, I mean it's male gazy and there's
I totally phrased that wrong. I mean it's designed for sort of to look at women doing sex.
It's a mixture. There's gay sex. There's sex with people who have two heads. I mean, at that point, it really doesn't matter.
They never had any complaints. There's I was going to say, it sounds like it's not intended to necessarily be titillating. Is that the point? Like, because that would be the.
I mean, it definitely
the brave
isn't
Rubicon
titillating.
for sexy games, right? Would be like, it's not trying,
It isn't titillating.
Okay, but is it not trying to be? Because that's a.
But also, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, I think it misfires if it is because.
Amazing! You're just gonna. There's no avoiding.
So you're saying
these.
it's sort of. It expended its most striking image too soon.
Indeed it did, yes. I think it misunderstands Geiger because a lot of it is Geiger-esque. And when you go into this other realm and it's basically all kind of gloopy Geiger-like spaceship level with kind of giant penis plants that whip at you and slick looking openings. But the thing is, that isn't in itself sexy. I don't think Geiger is intending to be sexy. It's intending to be sexual. And Geiger is about making the sexual horrific rather than trying to make the horrific sexy.
Yeah.
I think. More so, anyway.
I think it's
about the horror of bodies, about the horror of reproduction. Right. Alien is all about being impregnated and this thing living within you. And it's about consent and all these things which can be really troubling. I mean, yes, it's about sex, but it's about all the most troubling, terrifying aspects of sex. And those are fundamentally the aspects that don't encourage people to join cults, I think, probably.
I suppose the counterpoint to that would be that I would argue that the other side of Geiger is that it's about kind of exposing, part of the horror of it is exposing or trying to kind of, create physically through art, like a sense of some of the kind of grotesque aspects of sex. The fact that you can sort of expose the grotesque and the bizarre and take it to, take it to 11 on a bunch of different things. And the fact that it can still have some kind of powerful sexuality to it that can be compelling even if it's horrifying. Like, the point is not to be repulsed by it. The point is to be kind of drawn in and repulsed at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is, like, there was an article written by a dude, obviously, and I can't remember where it was a couple of weeks ago, and he got roundly dunked on Twitter because he did this study, based on nothing as far as I could tell, which proved that women find traditional monsters attractive, like vampires.
Oh, yes.
Whereas men will attempt to mount anything. Or heterosexual men at least. And it was he was ratioed, to a degree usually reserved, for, well, let's not go there. But you know what I mean? Like, it didn't go well. And it was because people find horror compelling and find monsters compelling in a bunch of ways because it's uncomfortable and sexy and powerful, relationships between power and sex and all of these different things. What I'm saying is there's material there that could be leveraged more deliberately by the right game, because you don't have to try. People will write this about your game even if you weren't intending it, right? Like, I challenge you to find the monster from a video game that hasn't had erotic fan fiction written about it.
For sure, yeah.
But anyway, I'm off piece, but
well, no, I think that's exactly pertinent. And what I was going to say, I mean, when you brought up Slanesh, is I think that's actually kind of walks that line a lot more kind of smartly in that you can see why people became Slanesh cultists, because they began with their ordinary urges and those urges became something
amplified and kind of
it's like it's kind of a metaphor for addiction, basically. It's like I can no longer be satisfied by this amount.
But you don't,
of the dark ecstasy.
Out of the gate end up in Geiger Dick Plantsville, really, when it comes to these things.
No, or
I
at
still
least,
think that if this game had sort of given you like some idea of the advertising that this cult had been putting out in local papers and things like that, and like, just like some of the like little, round group kind of sessions that they kind of, introduced you with.
Character, according to the backstory, anyway, the character is sucked into it due to his, by a honey trap, essentially. He has an affection for one of the other cultists and she sort of lures him into it. And so that is, that I can see that as a kind of, but it needs to do more work on that side of stuff in order to set up that you would ever remain in
I think also,
house.
as you were saying about Geiger, and like if you're going to do Geigery stuff, like you can't not be, play around with the, as Chris was saying, the kind of like the appealing, the repulsiveness, and also the attractiveness of this stuff.
Yeah, it feels like,
because otherwise you're going to go, it's just a fucking pulp shit game.
It feels like the purpose of that stuff is to play chicken with you. Right, like when are you going to flinch? Because it's not. Whereas I guess if it throws it in your face straight away, you don't really have a choice, right? Like it's just like, oh. Yeah. But
also because Geiger is so overused in video games as elsewhere as pure horror, really. I mean, those environments feel, almost entirely like horror environments rather than anything else. There's no kind of deeper complexity to them, and yes, okay, so there's a big thrashing thing that looks like a dick, but I mean, that by itself is just not a really...
Be like Gordon Freeman, calmly activate the rocket booster.
Yes.
But what do you, what do you do with the monsters? Like, you just fight them?
No, so there's no combat in the game, you have to sort of avoid them, really.
Do you snog them? What if you snog them? Is there no way to snog stuff?
I don't think
Why the hell in this sex game is there no way to snog stuff?
Edge strikes again.
Yeah. What if we could snog the monsters?
I'd rather talk this evening, darling.
I think you put your hand into some kind of grotty looking orifices, but I mean, that's about it. Interestingly though, there are kind of scenes in it which despite being, involving, these sort of slightly, rigid looking low fidelity models, probably would be banned if they were in a film. Almost certainly would be banned if they were in a film.
Why?
Non-explicit sexual violence, I would say, would be the reason. But I mean, just thinking about what kinds of things the BBFC regularly censors, I think they would run afoul of that. But maybe because...
Does it feel gross in the game as it works in the game?
If they were depicted in film as they are in the game, it would be banned. But I mean,
what was your reaction to it?
I mean,
did you think, ooh, this is horrible?
Yeah, one of them made me feel uncomfortable, but in not a horror way, but in a
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, not sure this is good media sort of way, but maybe that's an interesting reaction. I don't know.
Doesn't sound like
not.
it.
I mean, it's quite common. It's quite an easy reaction, I think, to go bad wrong. If you know what I mean.
Bad wrong or good wrong?
Bad wrong.
Yeah.
But so if it's not really. If it doesn't really explore sex sexuality, Geiger, whatever, in a particularly interesting way, and it's also not of itself, expressly titillating, and it doesn't really explore the idea of cults or being a cult member, I don't really know why the game exists in this way. Like, I mean, it could be just like a walking simulator with jump scares, which is what Layers of Fear is. But obviously this is about market positioning to some extent.
Right.
I think. And, I don't know. You and I, Alex, have been having a recent conversation about, the number of games there are and the way that the things have polarized in the market. So that, in order to be noticed, you need to be doing something interesting or possibly just deeply weird. And I wonder if this is just a way.
This is like an expression of that, or like an artifact of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to locate, like, so if I suspect that the adult games or the sexual themes tag on Steam is a cesspit of shovelware and opportunistic stuff.
It is. Yeah.
But that there's probably a successfully identify an untapped market in being the least shovelware-y thing in there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're going for, yeah.
Doing it good.
Which is interesting. Like, it's, people use that data to identify needs, basically.
So are you proposing a new wing of the Crate and Crowbar? The sexy game making crowbar bar.
Are you saying we make them or we review them?
We make them.
No.
Chris's face was a picture there. You didn't know what.
Chris's face went to...
Ooh. What would I make?
No,
not that.
Just like man who is literally partly who has had to read COPA legislation in the last year considers this prospect. No, but nonetheless, I think it's fascinating though. The emergence of it, because it feels like, there will be more adult games, and Steam providing a platform for them to be sold will both create them, but it's also a response to, it's a chicken and egg thing, but that trend was going to happen regardless. It was going to happen somewhere.
Yeah. Right? I'm glad you picked a reproductive metaphor there. For this.
I didn't mean to. Yeah.
Anyway, that's what horny man bread making Bombay has been playing this week.
That's where you got that horny name.
Yeah, exactly.
They know.
Yeah.
They know.
Shall we do some questions?
Yeah, seamless.
The ones that come from questions.
Do you remember when that was said for the first time?
Might have been the first episode.
I think it was.
We should ask Kane.
Was it
or
you? Ourselves
who were there.
Was it
I
you,
don't remember
Martin?
anything about last week. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Was it you?
Oh, it was probably, as with the mispronunciation.
Well, I think thanks for listening is you.
Yeah.
I think questions from questions was Graham.
Oh. Yeah,
I'm going to make a wild guess because it came from the fact we used to say questions from Twitter on the PC Gamer podcast, and with the Crate and Crowbar we introduced questions from emails, and someone panicked at the threat of inaccuracy. I would note for anyone who's ever criticised a journalist, and immediately just said something stupid instead. I would also note for anyone who's ever criticised a journalist.
Our first question from questions comes from Daniel, question writer. He writes in his question, Dear id and Ego Bar, tremendous work on the 300 episodes. At 2 hours on average, that's 600 hours or 25 full days of podding. A sincere thank you to everyone on continuing to walk the tightrope of thoughtful, silly and drunk in equal measure. Disco Elysium style, each contributor to the podcast represents a facet of the podcast's overall personality. Who is which facet? Cheers, Daniel. And he says, P.S. I've just joined the Patreon to celebrate the 300th episode, having been a malingering freeloader up until now. Sorry.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Oh, I know.
Who are you, Alex?
Shivers.
You're Shivers. Oh, so you're actually doing the actual, the Disco Elysium one?
Well, I thought that was a question. Was it?
Well, it's a facet of the podcast's overall personality. So it depends whether the podcast has a Shivers as its... amongst its stats.
I think if I was going to go with the actual Disco Elysium ones, I would be drama.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. If I was going to go with a kind of new set just for the podcast, I would go with mounting desire to overshare. Marsh.
Well, there isn't a personality subset for drawing goblin dicks, so I mean that's like 99% of my person.
I'm afraid I've got apologetic already. So
so hang on, if we're going for the skills though.
For skills, I don't know. I'd like to think it was empathy or something high-minded, but it probably is just something grotty, isn't it? Grubby.
Is there an electrochemistry for goblin dicks?
There should be.
Yeah.
It's basically like you try to go through life without drawing a giant, great big graffiti goblin dick, and then you get laid off the force as a result.
In Dixo Elysium. Are we going to try and attempt this for the other contributors?
Oh, Tom Senior. I mean, his public transport outburst surely deserves some sort of...
That was a Disco Elysium fail, as we understand it.
Esprit de going on public transport.
He's probably right now shouting at somebody on public transport. That's why he couldn't make it to this podcast. Somebody summoned him.
He said he's sick.
Yeah, Esprit de bus or something.
Sick of travelling.
Tom Francis.
I mean, very logical.
Yeah, it might just be logic.
I mean, he literally did a degree in that. So.
Yeah, I think it's like the first 10 minutes of podcast, logic, last 10 minutes of podcast, electrochemistry. Let's think. Graham.
Is there stoicism?
Yeah, like he's sort of the watcher of the grey wall.
Implacable.
Yeah.
Bearskin robed.
His tousled hair.
Frost catching in his beard.
As he stares north.
That's a personality type. I think we've done that.
Yeah. Pip. Other than chaos.
Chaos.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
What is the one that generates? It's Inland Empire, the one that generates strange, random internal thoughts.
Inland Empire.
She is Inland Empire queen. Pipland Empire. I'd play that game.
I live there.
Look how much fun.
Shall I continue?
Yeah.
Tasha writes, "Hey, I've recently discovered your Little Grey Cells podcast and was sad to see there are no more posts after season 2, episode 1. Am I missing something, or was the podcast discontinued? Please say no. Thank you, Tasha."
So, we get this a lot now, which is lovely and also kind of, makes me feel bad. But, so there's every desire to bring, Little Grey Cells back at some point. The issue we hit was basically just energy levels, basically. We had loads of momentum for it, and then, recently we moved house and things. The current plan is that we're going to look into try and buck out some time to record a whole bunch of them and then put them out over time.
Sweet.
Rather than sort of, hang it on the whole, can we find an evening for it this week thing. But yeah, without prefiguring a later question, way more people have come up to me at random about Little Grey Cells than this podcast or anything else I've ever done. So,
well, presuming Tasha doesn't listen to this podcast, so maybe we should just reply to her.
Yeah, maybe I'll just reply. In other ways, but nonetheless, another question enough that it's worth saying. I would love to do Little Grey Cells again, but it's just a question of energy levels and time, basically. So hopefully a bit later in this mad year.
Kyle writes, "Dear Pilates and downward-facing crowbar, hearing Pip talk about her issues with Dota and toxicity reminded me of my own experiences with competitive multiplayer games, specifically Apex Legends. I almost never play anything multiplayer because I don't have friends who play these sorts of games, and I find the idea of playing with strangers extremely stressful. I gave Ape Legs a shot because I liked Titanfall, and the ping system sounded like it might alleviate some of my issues with competitive games. I played for a good amount of time, about 30 hours, generally enjoyed it, and for the most part had good experiences with teammates. However, I get a bad egg every now and again, and eventually this wore me down to the point that I stopped playing. No matter how rare it is, the experience of being yelled at by someone I don't know over something I don't understand is so unpleasant, and the threat of it so nerve-wracking that it effectively ruined the game for me. This gave me an idea. What if queues in online games were split into 2 groups, one queue for people who wanted to yell at each other, and another for people who are afraid of being yelled at, e.g. me? Would this work? Do you have any other silly but potentially effective ideas for grouping people in multiplayer games? And more seriously, do you think there's any way to make multiplayer games more palatable for people like me who have a very low tolerance for online toxicity? Happy podding, Kyle."
I think the only solution to this that reasonably works is good in-game kind of, emotes and clarity of objectives.
Yeah.
Plus voice chat always being, or chat in general, always being opt-in, not opt-out.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think a dual queuing system for people who are optionally assholes would work because obviously
the assholes would go, I'm going to get into that queue.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's, self-declaration, because no one sees themselves as an asshole.
And the people who do are obviously active trolls, so they would always queue in that queue anyway. But it's a really hard one to fix. I don't know that you can even totally fix it just by cutting out communication, because you still have people who will be, just non-compliant with the agenda of the game in order to make a point.
Yeah.
But
Ape Legs is a pretty, it has failed him, but,
I have found Ape Legs genuinely good for this.
Yeah, because of the clarity of objective and the emo system, almost exclusively. But Destiny, I can't remember the last time I had nasty experiences in Destiny.
I've only ever had upset people in Destiny at random raid groups, and that is opt-in to an nth degree, because you have to, go to a Reddit and sign up for something at a particular time.
Right.
And also the vast majority of those experiences were lovely.
Yeah.
There is a, Destiny allows you to opt in to a group, voice chat, and it is on PC, easy to do it by accident if you're me. And that is the scariest thing in the English language. That is terrifying. That is real terror.
What actually happens then? Because I've been also afraid.
Nothing happens at all, unless the other person is yelling at you, which they never are. But the fact that they might be, don't like it. Don't like it. Don't like it. Occasionally you'll see the notification that says, like, Bong Lord Wiener Hitler has joined the group chat, and you're like, well, I won't then.
Actually, Bung Lord Wiener Hitler actually writes in, so... No, he doesn't. Jeff writes, it's another Pip-related question. Triple Pip. Triple.
Pipple.
Pipple.
Good job.
Wilmot's Warehouse is I wanted to say Pipple then. Is a Pip game about making order out of chaos. Untitled Goose Game is a Pip game about making chaos from order. I assume Dicey Dungeons is also a Pip game, but where does it lie on the spectrum of order and chaos? Alternative question, how many pips and how many games does Dicey Dungeons have?
Dicey Dungeons has 21 pips.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like 6 plus 5
Yeah,
plus
it's
4
the number of
plus
pips
3.
on a dice. I'm being a smart-ass. Good night. Yeah, that's a good observation. Although, I think Wilmot's Warehouse is not necessarily about making order from chaos, but making your own definition of order from chaos, which is a crucial distinction that is what renders it a pip game. That's all I would add.
Mark writes, Dear Wood and Rod, having listened to your 13th episode, I want to convey my appreciation to you all. I've been listening since the days of the PC Gamer podcast. This has been time enough for Marsh to have left and come back again, for Diablo 3 to go from crap to great, and for me to have changed career 3 times. Through all of this, you've continued to provide your signature mix of searingly hot takes, tortuous metaphors, and jovial bedlam. Thank you, Chris, Tom, Pip, Alex, and Marsh. He doesn't mention Graham.
Sorry, shouldn't have laughed.
Somewhere.
He was too quiet on the wall.
He's too stoic.
A single tear runs down his face and freezes before it reaches his moustache. The Crate and Crowbar has become the well-worn slippers that are often all that's needed to cheer up a bad week, and the cheery exclamation that punctuates a good one. I've just very belatedly joined your Patreon. Another one. And look forward to a long future of you taking my money. Also, I fully endorse the continued coverage of your Bloodborns, Zero Dawns, and other superlative console titles. I'm very much looking forward to your incisive deconstruction of next year's Animal Crossing. With best wishes, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. What a nice spark.
Thanks, Mark. I don't think we can deconstruct Animal Crossing because Pip will kill every one of us one by one. That's the other place Pip lives, and you're not going to deconstruct it any faster than she can construct it.
Kingsley writes, Dear liars and spires. Last week, Marsh said he spoilt telling lies for himself by trying to find out if there was a signal when you'd, in quotes, finished the game. Marsh, that's me. Does such a signal exist? Can you reveal it without spoilers so we can avoid a similar fate? Cheers, Kingsley. I can. Kingsley, I can. And I will. The game purports to give you a time limit until 5 a.m., which is a time visible on your screen at the top right. But time does not advance per minute played. It advances seemingly erratically per percentage of your completion of videotapes. So it will reach 5 a.m. when you have essentially watched enough videotapes to give you a good sense of what's happened, at which point you can continue watching, or a new option opens up, which will essentially end the game. I think I've answered that.
Good job.
Thanks, man.
You should write guides.
No.
Have you considered? There's only 2 games though if you write guides. That's the real problem with them as a medium.
Oh, into the discourse.
I wish I could escape it.
Charles writes, Dear Leclue and Class War, the question in last week's podcast about tabletop RPG adaptation... RPG adaptations of games has got me wondering, do any of you have any favourite board games or card games that are adapted from video games? If not, what video games would you most like to see adapted as a board or a card game? Personally, I really enjoy the Dark Souls board game. It's a cooperative game that manages to be both fun and extremely challenging in a way that feels a lot like video games, and it does a pretty good job of preserving the Dark Souls atmosphere. It also avoids cleaving too closely to the video game mechanics, dodging the trap that the tabletop adaptations you were talking about last week fell into. Cheers, Charles. Charles? Cheers.
Cheers, Charles.
Cheers, Charles. I don't know if So years and years and years ago, there was a Star Wars grand strategy game called Star Wars Rebellion on the PC. And I liked that. And now there is a board game called Star Wars Rebellion, which is a grand strategy game. And I don't think they have anything to do with each other. But in the off chance that they do, I like it. It takes all day, but that is kind of optimal for me. It's like, I don't know, I quite like playing Civ against one other person, basically. Cool asymmetric Empire versus Rebellion mixture of deception and military strategy and grand strategy sort of production line kind of stuff. It's cool. You can kidnap and freeze Chewbacca.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Come to my house and I'll show you.
Do you then launch the frozen Chewbacca
I'll tell you what.
on a catapult?
No, so it's from a mechanic where you essentially, it's a cool game mechanic actually. I'd love to see a video game take it up. Basically, there's a few ways you enact your will as a player, but one of them is, you assign a leader character to a mission and you assign them and then both players take it in turns to sort of resolve the assignments that they've done with the option of not resolving something. So I'm going to send this character to this place to do this mission. And it works slightly differently if you're the Empire or the Rebellion, because the Empire tends to be assigning a figurehead to oversee a project, whereas the Rebellion tends to be actually sending an operative to a part of the galaxy to do a task. And then you can hold leaders in reserve to counter other leaders. And the Empire, this allows them to ultimately try and capture, if they send like Boba Fett after someone, they can capture a rebel leader and put them in carbonite and, you know, ship them around, turn them to the dark side and stuff. It's cool.
I see. So it's
genuinely
packaging up.
Yeah. But it leads to loads of neat scenarios. And I played it with Pip once, and Pip was the Empire. And as anyone who's listened to the Pip recounts Star Wars audio will know, sort of willfully doesn't understand anything about Star Wars, to the point where she just played as like ruthlessly, well, she just played according to her whim, which meant that like I was holding this card that would allow me to trigger a Wookiee uprising on Kashyyyk, the home of the Wookiees. And some mission cards work anywhere, but this one's very specific, has to work on Kashyyyk. The turn I was about to deploy it, Pip was like, I'm just going to fire the Death Star, which is like a kind of involved process, and destroyed this planet. And I was like, why have you done, how did you know I was holding this card? I didn't. And did you know that's where Chewie's from? No. And I got absolutely crushed. That game ended with Darth Vader slaughtering Luke Skywalker and ending the rebellion.
That is the perfect Pip chaos moment.
Exactly. But she got upset because she thought she'd ruined Star Wars for me, and I was like, no, you've made it. You've done this kind of dark Elseworlds thing where Emperor Pippletine kind of like annihilates everything I care about.
As a coda to our previous RPG discussion, our RPG group has abandoned Symbaroum.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Symbaroum.
Yeah. We decided that the rules just weren't robust enough.
I'll tell you what happened. Marsh was upset because his strangling didn't work as much as it should do.
That's not true. It worked really well. It worked too well. In fact,
it did actually. We, I was
supercilious wizards.
I was a wizard who was
power.
able just to, there was no reason not to mind control stuff. It's not very good. It's not very good.
We came up across the boss monster and we just turned him into a pig, and that was it for him. And Jim was like, oh, that was meant to take ages.
The thing, persuasion, polymorph, and apparently strangling are the,
OP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did try and convince the group to play the Fantasy Flight, mechanics. Genesis system, but I think we're going with Scum and Villainy instead.
It's a decent system.
Yeah, Blade system is awesome.
Blade system is good. Blade system is good for what Blades does, which is heists.
Yeah.
I just worry there aren't going to be,
if you try hard enough.
There aren't going to be enough necks in space. Are they? They're going to be robo necks. I can't strangle those. They're not going to be satisfying.
It'll go through a conduit, the robo conduit. It's fine. It works.
Yeah, you wouldn't that kind of fleshy, kind of cartilaginous.
All right, but you can just say, anyway.
I appreciate what you're doing, Marsh, which is that the Goblin Dick brand has kind of run its course, and now Frustrated Strangler is your new thing.
Dominic writes, hi, Crate and Crowbar.
Hi, Dominic.
I recently found and started listening to your fine podcast due to a slightly unusual route. On my walk to work down one of Bath's 7 hills, I passed a woman walking up the hill who looked weirdly familiar. Just after passing, my brain decided the familiarity was because she looked a lot like Pip, who I recognise from her contributions to RPS and Shut Up and Sit Down. My attempts to work out if Pip did in fact live in Bath led me to you. More specifically, the combination of her name and the mention of the city of Bath on your contact page. I'm still feeling guilty about staring quizzically at either Pip or some other random woman for slightly too long than is polite, while my brain was trying to place her. In that vein, if a listener or consumer of some other form of your content was to recognise one of you on the street, how would you prefer they greet you, if at all? More gaming related, I've come to the conclusion in recent years that given limited time, I would generally prefer a shorter, focused game than one that boasts hundreds of hours of play, padded with either enormous open worlds or grinds. Which game do you think would have been better if they had just made less of it? Thanks, Dominic. A pertinent question this particular week. What about the first question?
If you say Chris, I'll immediately apologise.
Yeah. Apologise
is a trait I share exactly with Chris Tomlin.
Yeah.
The correct response.
It doesn't really happen to me because I'm nobody, but,
oh,
but oh, good. That's what my reaction would be.
Okay.
I think it'd be quite frightening.
Yeah, just, it's nice when people say hello in a nice way. That tends to be what happens.
What do you think, Marty?
Great. Let's go.
So I was just going to say, I had a coffee with Tom a couple of weeks ago, before his departation.
Oh yeah.
And, we were chatting on and there was a couple sitting at the table next to us. And as they got up, the bloke said, "Oh, Tom, big fan, thanks for everything," shook his hand and off. Like, it was a really nice moment. And I just assumed like, oh, it must happen to you quite a lot, Tom. And he said, "Second time it's ever happened." He said he was very pleased.
Oh,
yeah, very pleased.
That's nice.
David writes, "Hi all. My addled brain cannot recall if the origin of Tactical Breach Wizards had been discussed on the pod or not, but I think I found it listening to an earlier episode. I just listened to episode 47, having recently beaten Transistor and wanted to hear everyone's takes on it. Then answering a question about Rainbow Six Siege, the discussion turned to Destiny, and that wizard came from the moon. This led to Chris professing his love of wizards, which is objectively correct, and eventually how it'd be cool if there was a game where you could tactically breach in clear rooms a la Rainbow Six, but your team was wizards. Anyway, the question, as Chris said, wizards are so dorky that they usually get dressed up as sorcerers or thaumaturges or something else that sounds cooler. I too feel that there's something special about wizards just being wizards, even if they are total dorks. What is something in games that you earnestly love, but that may not be considered particularly cool? Take care, David."
This is actually kind of revelatory because we thought that discussion happened on an episode of the PC Gamer podcast.
Yeah.
Because I have a memory of walking back from the PC Gamer podcast with Rich McCormick talking about exactly this thing, like wizards breaching and clearing in a Call of Duty game. I don't know. I think this like concept was birthed from our kind of collective, like it's the joke basically. And now it is. What was the question?
Do you like anything that's uncool? I mean, other than our entire medium.
Other than the things I've professed to like.
There are things like sort of separate things like spending hours fucking around with settings to stop the tiny little frame rate hitch that occasionally happens, just dumb, dorky shit like that.
I think for me is like, I fucking love a good kind of moody, gothy sort of aesthetic on a thing. I think maybe that wouldn't always be obvious. I mean, it comes with the wizard thing is off to the side, but like the original, Vampire's Masquerade and Vampire Bloodlines,
right,
both like big hits for me. Like, any game, like Max Payne 2 as well, any game that can self-consciously end with Lacuna Coil, that's big. I like that. I think it's probably the dorkiest thing that I've undisclosed so far. I was quite a gothy teen, and occasionally it resurfaces.
I don't like anything uncool. That's my stance. As I'm sitting there playing video games in my house hat. Fucking badass.
Yeah. playing erotic Lovecraftian games.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
In your house hat.
I'm going to have to watch that.
Yeah.
I think.
The Dobby of wanking.
Oh, there's been quite a lot of unusable podcast titles this episode.
Yeah. That's not unusable, though.
I think we might get kicked off Spotify for that. I don't know.
Yeah, we're now on Spotify, by the way. You're welcome. Well, I say you're welcome in a passive-aggressive way, having been asked repeatedly to do it. Only to say I think it's probably hard. Only to find out it's really super easy and doing it in 10 minutes.
Why aren't the first few episodes on Spotify?
I don't know.
We just didn't put them in an RSS feed or something like that?
They are there.
They're not
in the RSS feed.
Oh. They're not.
It might be the Spotify has a limit. I'll look into it. Oh God, more work. But yeah, we'll,
Sorry. Joe writes, "Hi, what's with all the indie games about dealing with loss?"
You've really done Joe a disservice with this voice.
It's a little bit Total Biscuit. There's a lot of them, isn't there? I'm not imagining, am I?
Stand-up routine.
Thanks, Joe. That was just my normal voice then. What the fuck? Come on.
What's the deal?
Yeah. I see. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's because life is loss.
Yeah.
Life is pain and suffering, as the Buddha tells us.
It's, yeah. And, games give people more freedom to explore things that are true and real and happen to them. And
Indies love to do like stuff about feelings and stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
Indies.
There was a period where every IGF nominated game seemed to be either about being in a coma or dealing with some incurable illness.
I was going to ask about the coma thing because it's a real serious thing that's in every fucking indie game. So
I think they've got over it now, though, right?
Have they?
I don't know.
I feel like it looks at the fringe, and I have had this experience myself writing for games, but like it looks at the fringe of every piece of world building you do is like, this would be easier if the player was in a coma. Yeah. Then I don't really have to explain anything.
I should have read it out in that voice. That was a good voice.
I think
the furtive writer excuses voice.
Indie games about.
I think we've kind of moved through that kind of difficult phase
weapon to
where
surpass Metal Gear.
you kind of games felt that they had to do weighty subjects.
Right, yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, I think
I think that they're kind of like, oh, actually we can
You're
just
a horrible
have shooting
goose.
in it now. Or you're a horrible goose.
Man. There's something in the journey from Braid to Goose Game. You know what I mean? Because like once upon a time it's like I'm going to make a puzzle platformer with a interesting mechanic about turning back time, and it's going to be about a breakup or something. Right?
Yeah.
Like we don't need to explain this. It speaks for itself.
Yeah.
It feels like maturity within the medium.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there are, I think, instances where those things have been tied together in an interesting way. Talos Principle is a good example of tying a falutin story. I won't say how high, but it falutes.
But like,
never had any complaints. But sorry, I've completely. You guys continue. It's fine. Alex, you were saying?
You would like to toot on this?
It's funny on this flute. Toot on the flute. I was just remembering I think that period of indie games coincided pretty much with the period in game like journalism kind of style writing, where in order like so many writers started doing like, oh yeah, something bad happened in my life, but games helped me through it.
Oh my god, yeah, that was fucking torturous period. Sorry, everybody who I know who wrote those.
Yeah, I was on the judging panel of some game journalism award thing, sort of for 1 year, and I tell you, like 3/4 of them were that article over and over and over again. And it's the worst thing is like these are real things that are happening to people about loved ones dying and contracting diseases and whatever. And I was getting really quite angry about it because it was the same template over and over again. And individually, fine, but en masse. And
I don't really.
And games, like as a culture, like we've got to. I'm kind of embarrassed about games. We've got to make them do things that they're not.
I don't really blame the individual writers in that context.
Yeah,
because
every individual attempt is fine, but
also
like,
games media had construed a situation where it was possible to make about 120 quid by. As long as you could connect a bereavement to Fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
You're Both Monsters. I think those were really touching and important stories.
I think I made a compass.
A compass?
Yeah, that I'll send it to you later. I made a way of plotting game journalists on Nexus.
Right. Is that something we can put in the show notes?
Probably, yeah. I'll dig it out. It's on my old, wanky Tumblr.
Oh.
I had a wanky Tumblr. 20s.
And Martin's the Dobby, and you're the Tumblr.
Such deletable content.
Kane writes, "Hello!
Hi.
As you know, one of the most crucial revelations in Destiny's deep lore is the fact that Guardians are all reincarnated dogs. What other video game characters are secretly animals? Personally, I've long suspected that Tarn Adams dwarves are secretly cats. Between their aloof stoicism, their tendency to cause work stoppages and job cancellations by claiming urgently needed bins and refusing to relinquish them, and the way they sometimes run around the fort in a maddening daze and without warning, all scream cat at me. Also, that they're terrified of great horned owls. Eyes on the ball, Regardians." Kane. I only just got that when I read it out. I read it earlier. I was like, I don't know what that's a reference to. It's probably some Destiny thing. I'll just read it out anyway. Now I understand. Anyway.
I was just thinking that, so Kojima, he's kind of like a great big, loud parrot macaw thing, just sort of screaming and shouting. Gaudy.
Let's do.
But everything it knows is just a copy.
Oh.
Everyone's a clone as well, which is kind of double meta.
Double parrot.
Yeah. Double Parrot is a good Kojima name.
Maybe it's his own name.
No, that's Hideo Kojima. He's in Metal Gear 4.
What about Mass Effect? Are they gibbons?
Well, there's quite a lot of sex in Mass Effect, so I suppose in that sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Bonobos.
No, there's only...
Bonobos.
No, it's not. It's not. They're not, because they don't shag all the time. They shag once and then everyone goes off to die.
Oh, yeah.
So
that would be mantises?
Yeah, no,
Mayfly or something.
Mayflies, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's poignant.
It's sad.
I'll write a think piece about it, Alex.
Might do. And that time, I got some butter out of the fridge and it fell on the floor.
Yeah. Anyway, here's how to find all of the secret areas in Red Dead Online.
Is that all the discourse that we have time for this evening?
I'm discoursed to the max.
I discussed a long time ago, and I've just been spent and tired and sad ever since.
Well, if you'd like to send more insufferable discourse to us, or indeed very pleasant questions, or other accolades about our great podcast,
just send accolades.
You can do that at questions@craneandcrowbar.com, or you can tweet at us. Tweet us. Yeah, fucking hell.
The Roman social media.
I was going to say the pop punk Twitter.
Oh, God. You can tweet at us. At
us.
No. At Crate and Crowbar on the Twitter.
Us.
Oh, great.
What connects us, Alex?
Tweet.
Exactly. Anyway, here's my metaphor.
Thank you.
For Iceland.
There's a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. You can listen to the episodes on that. You can subscribe to our Patreon if you wish to do so. It should be nice, I guess. Which is patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar, or you can join our Discord community. It's amazing. And you can find the link to that.
Good discourse there.
Yes, indeed. Only the most quality Discord discourse. And you can find that on our website, the link to it on our website, craneandcrowbar.com. Is that everything, Chris? Have I done it? Have I finally done it?
Just the individual Twitter accounts.
Oh, fuck.
No, what about should you remind about the Spotify? If you want to do a Spotify?
I mean, you can now find the podcast on Spotify. The thing is, you're listening to the podcast right now, so you either know this or don't.
But you might be listening to it on the website wishing, if only this was on Spotify.
But they would have listened to the part where we talk about Spotify.
What if they were...
Unless we cut that because it was too embarrassing for some reason.
Yeah, all that, yeah.
Actually, you said that like you're in an infomercial. Like, I can't just listen to this.
Well, I'm here to tell you, you're in luck.
Somebody cramming a microphone into their mouth. I can't listen to the podcast. A physical demonstration there, which will be great for our listeners.
Yeah. Sorry if you could hear that, and if you couldn't hear it, also sorry.
What is your real going to the Twitter name for you individually, Chris?
My real going to the Twitter name for me individually, Chris, is C. Thurston, my initial and surname. That's C for...
Oh, no. Let's not do that again.
CTHURSTE, that's the one that'll get you. N.
I'm at Bread Making Bombay. I'm Marsh Davis.
And I am at Rotational.
R-O-T. Oh, God, right. Okay.
I screamed, you spelled it.
Trying to end this fucking horror.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
McClunky.
That's what bad business.
A lovely little woodland scamp.
That's me.